Good evening. I would like to call the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for July 24th, 2024 to order. Would you please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C is the roll call for council members. I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. As the clerk, finance director makes his way up to the microphone to call roll. Thanks, Doug.
Councilmember Brocksmith.
Here.
Councilmember Beaton.
Here.
Councilmember Molinar.
Here.
Councilmember Hudson.
Is excused tonight.
Councilmember Cicero.
Here.
Councilmember Carreyes.
Is excused tonight.
And Councilmember Vanderstoop.
Is excused and may be coming in late tonight. Thank you, Doug, for that. The adoption of tonight's meeting agenda. Any proposed changes to the agenda, or does council want to adopt it as is?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Gary. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Right, we are on to community comments. If there's anyone present in council chambers here tonight that would like to address council, please step on up to the podium. State your name and city of residence. Room for public comment. All right. We'll move on to consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes meeting minutes, payroll checks, wire transfers, claims, and a couple of agreements that council's been briefed on. Council like an adoption of tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gary, a second by Melissa. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right, consent agenda's approved. For reports tonight, we have the Development Services Committee report from last Wednesday, and Councilmember Brocksmith is joining us live from vacation on the East Coast. Thank you for being here. Councilmember Brocksmith.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, well, I'll keep the Development Services Committee presentation short. We met last week and we really talked about three main topics. The first one was parking requirements in the city of Mount Vernon. We're looking at reducing parking requirements from 4 required down to 2 required for single-family residences that would match other jurisdictions in Skagit County. But we're still looking to make sure there's not unintended consequences from that action. We also had a presentation, our second item, on Senate Bill 6015, which looks at reducing some of the parking requirements in cities, particularly not disallowing cities enforcing minimum parking requirements to be in carports and garages. So we had a great presentation from our city attorney. It gave us a lot of detail there around the summary of the bill, legal observations, policy observations, and some general next steps. And we did have a discussion about bringing forward some changes associated with both parking requirements and those Senate Bill 6015 changes. So we'll be talking about that hopefully in the very near future. And then finally, we had a presentation from Special Projects Manager Sexton. We're looking at House Bill 1590 or 1406? 1590, where we recently had a request for proposals. The good news is that we had multiple proposals provided by nonprofit partners in the city to help expand some of the housing services. And so we'll be talking further tonight about how to prioritize those and get funding out to support our partners in the effort to house more people in our city. So that was the extent of the Development Services Committee last week.
Great, thank you. I wanted to know we had the Finance and Parks and Enrichment Committee this evening. Councilmember Beaton filled in as chair for Councilmember Hudson, and if council's fine with it, we'll just table that report until Councilmember Hudson returns. Item 5B tonight is councilmember comments, any council member comments this evening? Yeah, Councilmember Tricero.
For our city attorney, I couldn't remember if you had answered this question last week or if you were going to research it, or when we asked if there's a case where you have to recuse yourself from commenting or advising city council, what's the process for that? Who do we turn to?
Sure. You have two options. One, if your city attorney's office internally is big enough, you can, if the conflict is personal to one lawyer, you can wall that lawyer off, and the other lawyers can represent the city, so long as there is no information sharing. If your city attorney's office is too small for that to happen, or optionally, if the resources need to be sourced out, it is not uncommon for cities to hire special assistant city attorneys. We have several municipal law firms that we are commonly associated with who help us depending on the particular issue.
And which of those two options are in the city of Mount Vernon?
You have both options
Oh, okay.
for you. And quite frankly, as the usual and customary practice in Mount Vernon, because your civil division is myself and a half-time attorney, for complex litigation, we can and typically do outsource contract with a law firm or a specific attorney who has subject matter expertise in the issue, working with the city attorney. WCIA or risk pool will hire an attorney if it's a covered issue. So that person would also be a special assistant city attorney.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other council member comments? Anyone? Okay, we will move on to item 5C, which is mayor's report. And Steve brings the presentation up. Wanted to share just some good news, first of all, with our residents. The Mount Vernon Police Department has had some challenges in the last couple of years, as a lot of police departments have, in recruiting and hiring staff. So I am thrilled to report that without compromising our stringent hiring process, the city's been able to add 5 new officers so far in 2024, with another officer likely to be sworn in next month, which is amazing. So if that happens, we will have added 6 new police officers, a new police chief, 1 receptionist, 1 records tech, 1 community service officer, and we have an iOS candidate who's in the testing phase at the assessment center. So all of that in 2024. So it has been a busy year for our department as they are working all the backgrounds and logistics of bringing these employees on. But we are very fortunate to have some great ones. And in this slide are the 3 most recent officers to be sworn in the past couple of weeks. Officers Ray Harvey, Josie Trosson, and Ruben Ayala. And we welcome those new officers. On the slide you're looking at now, you see, I wanted to point out that while I was away last week, Councilmember Melissa Beeden made her swearing-in debut. And I heard that she did an outstanding job. So thank you for doing that, Melissa, your willingness to step up.
It was an honor.
Great. So, other good things happening in the city, this one in parks. Again, a reminder, an invitation to bring kids, grandkids to the 38th Annual Youth Arts Festival at Hillcrest Park. So that's going to be this Saturday. Get that on the calendar. It's 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's a free event with a lot of great stuff going on for kids. It's a favorite for a lot of our residents, which is why it's probably in its 38th year. And finally, just don't forget Mayor's Coffee this Friday. That's 2 days away, July 26th at the Skagit Table, downtown Mount Vernon. We start at 10 a.m. We'll have some coffee on for you, and you're welcome to grab some snacks or lunch during or after at Skagit Table. We'll be talking about whatever city-related topics you are curious about. So please plan on joining us downtown this Friday, 10 a.m. And that is your Mayor's Report for July 24th, 2024. We will move on to item D, which is committee agenda requests. Council, do we have agenda requests? Anything? All right. Then item 6 is new business. And under new business, item A is a public hearing for a change in solid waste rates. And Public Works Director Chris Phillips will present this item. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. I will let you know that our contractor or consultant was supposed to be with us this evening. However, this is why we prep. So I am pretty sure, boink, there we go. I will have the opportunity to share with you this evening the public hearing for our solid waste rate study. Before I get to slide 1, I just wanted to share with you there's a variety of emails from council over the past probably 2 weeks, ever since we talked about this at the Public Works Committee. And I think it's fair game to sit there and go, again, how do we get here? I'm sorry.
Just sorry to interrupt, Chris. Chris Bell is on the Zoom call.
Oh, he is.
He is.
Hi, Chris, are you still there? Oh, there you go. Oh, you are there. I looked up previously and I saw Councilmember Brocksmith, but I saw no bells. So I was like, I guess I'm the guy. I was ready to go.
I thought about letting you go with it just to see what happened. But
Oh, okay. Well, I appreciate that.
He's been immersed in this enough that he's probably well.
Well, how about this? How about if I tee it up, Chris, then I'll turn it over to you. So as I was stating, and Chris has been involved in a lot of the responses that came back from me to the City Council regarding these questions. But again, one, it's a very valid question, and I think for our public as well, is how do we get here? You know, we just raised our rates in 2021 in the September-ish timeframe, and we were moving on a trajectory to have a $1.2 to $1.3 million fund reserve, which is about 15% to 16% of that operating fund, which is about $6.5 million. And the intent here was not to create this huge, Councilmember Molinar, slush fund, but actually a reserve. And this reserve is actually used for 60 days worth of operating, as an operating fund. How much does it cost us to do business for 60 days? That's staff, that's gas, that's material, everything, in case the city had some type of an issue that came up that was affecting that funding. So that's what that funding is for. It's not there for anything other than, as you know, enterprise fund can only be used for solid waste activities. Okay, so that was one thing. So during this time frame in 2021, we had already had a deficit and we were starting to incrementally pull out of that. And annually, what I brought with Andy, our solid waste manager, who happens to be on vacation today, is talking to him about how goes it. So on an annual basis, we would visit our city clerk finance director, Doug Valesky, and we would talk to him about where are we? How are we doing? We projected at year 1 we were going to be here. Where did that happen? So in year 1, we were fine. 2022, we were on target. You know, in fact, maybe slightly above. Then City Council approved a salary survey that was done, which again got us up to speed at that particular time with salaries. So that was a chunk of money that, again, in solid waste, it was exacerbated to a degree because most of our employees that are there are at the very right-hand side of the scale, meaning they're at step 8. Okay, we only had like one employee that was not. We have somebody retiring just coming up here, but the bottom line is it hit that department or division in Public Works a little harder than it did other departments just due to the fact of the seniority of the employees that you had there. So that was a chunk. During the Public Works Committee meeting, again, my esteemed colleague Doug Valesky talked about the cost share model that comes into play. Part of your salary is paid out of the solid waste fund, and a reapportionment of how that got distributed because of that salary survey, again, exacerbated where we were. And then we all know what happened with COVID, post-COVID inflation, 9% during this time frame in 2022 and 2023. So the cost of, you fill in the blank, was costing us that much more. And that's how we got to the point of needing a rate study and then adding on top of it our good friends at the county. Okay, so our good friends at the county, which is a contract dealing with the transfer site there. So all the municipal governments, to include the county, drop their solid waste off there and it gets transferred out, that the city pays into that, much like an enterprise fund, like the stormwater, where everybody's collectively paying in. And indeed, as you can see, when I get to slide 1, and we'll get Chris Bell in here, they jumped those prices rather significantly from $104 to $131 a ton. So when you sit there and incrementally take a look at what was going on, that chunk that the transfer fee comes into play at the county transfer station was significantly more than any of the other or things that I talked about that affected the price. And that's why I come to you today with Chris Bell with us here, is to talk through that particular piece. Now, as a public hearing, this is a purely councilmatic action. And what I mean by that, y'all set the policy. If there's something that you want to have done, all I would ask you at the end of the briefing today is if we can get a quick, is that what the council wants to do? Not necessarily a specific council member or even the mayor, but what does the council want us to do? You provide that direction. We're paying Chris Bell, who's up on the screen, some very decent money to go back and recalculate and get back to you, because once we pass this into law or it's into code, we've got to wait 45 days, to my esteemed colleague there, Kevin
45
Rogerson.
days after notification.
After notification, which means this really will not take effect until the 1 November bill. I mean, it'll take effect in October, but we're not going to collect anything until November. Okay, so we just kind of kick another month of kind of extra, operating in a deficit, if you will. Okay, so that kind of is a brief synopsis of the 2 weeks between committee and tonight, that I had shared all the information that I could with council on that, so we could have an active dialogue tonight. Okay, and with that, I will kick it over to Chris Bell, and I'll hit you up here, Chris, on the first slide, and you've got it.
What's interesting is Chris, you hit every point. It's like as if you've seen this presentation so many times. You hit every point, I think, to the 4th slide in that discussion. So as Chris was saying, you've got some significant increases that are hitting the solid waste division. You've got the increase in disposal, which went from 104 to 131. And that was primarily due to the end of the contract that Skagit County had with Republic Services for transportation and disposal of waste from the Skagit County transfer station. And they got a new contractor with that bid, and it's now Waste Management, who is now is offering the same services. However, they're draining the waste from Skagit County all the way down to Seattle, where they're putting it on a railroad there and then sending it down to Arlington, Oregon, to be put in a landfill there, Columbia Ridge landfill. So the additional cost of that went from 104 to 131. That's effective September 1st. And then you had the 10% increase on labor. And as Chris was saying, with most of your workers being at the top of the scale with that 10% increase, it did hit you a little bit harder than most of the other divisions. And then also the increase in the way the costs are allocated amongst the city departments. You saw an increase of 194,000, and 40,000 of that was for the administrative costs of providing the services to the solid waste fund by the accounting staff. And then to top that off, you do have a negative fund balance in utility fund. And as you were saying earlier, we were on that trajectory to have $1 million, which is about approximately 15% of your solid waste fund, your annual solid waste fund expenditure. And it's a good thing that you did have some of those funds in there, the reserve, because the deficit would have been significantly higher had you not done that, had you not started planning for that. But those are the costs that were taken into consideration as I calculated the cost, effective in this case September 1st, but it won't be implemented until November because of the timing of the notices. That being said, it's going to start this year. It's going to go for the rest of 2004 and then for 2005. So if you could have next, there you go. Exactly. So the cost to bring the fund balance up from its from its deficit to the approximately 17% of cost is $1.25 per customer per month for residential service, $1.15 for every collected yard of garbage for the commercial, and $5 per haul for drop box haul for drop box and roll off compactor customers. So, and that's the additional amount on top of the service. Now, to project the cost moving forward, starting with this current year budget and then over the rate period, I assumed that the labor was going to escalate at a 4.5% increase annually. The truck expense, which is interesting, as Chris kind of alluded to, that after COVID, post-COVID, the cost of trucks and equipment has gone up significantly. It's anywhere from 5 to 12% increase, either replacement costs for the truck, for the repair costs, or for the outside repair. So with that, I assume that the truck expense cost over that next 5 years is going to escalate at about 7.5% annually. And in city administrative services and city services, approximately 4.5% for those costs. So all of those costs, or all those line item expenses, were escalated by that amount, with the exception of the disposal cost, which, if you could go to the next screen.
Chris, if I could add something real quick here for
Yes.
council. If you recall, council, we came to you from Solid Waste Public Works last year to be able to build chassis for 2 trucks in the 26 and 27 timeframe because of the issue that Chris is talking about right now, the costs of what were going on. So you've already got a down payment for a few of these things that are in there, but taking into account what Chris said, just to be able to get things through that pipeline of making things in America, that's how far we had to plan out, almost 3 years. So with that, Chris, next slide.
Yeah, because you alluded to, that's actually a very prudent practice that Andy went back and was talking with other directors, other managers of solid waste, and got the approval to go ahead and order and purchase those trucks, which is great because not only because of the cost, he locked in a lower level cost, but the other thing too that's going to happen is that the state of Washington has a law in effect that after a certain point, trucks that run on internal combustion engines are going to be phased out. They already have this law in effect in California right now, and it's very, very problematic because it's really hard to find a garbage truck that runs efficiently on a battery. And so with those known changes in the law, the purchase of equipment right now, purchasing equipment, preparing for that point when those trucks phase out it was a very, very prudent approach and very smart on behalf of Andy. So as I was saying, the disposal cost increase that we're going to see here is going to go from $104 a ton to $131 a ton. And the overall cost associated with that right now, it's approximately $5.62 for a customer with a 35-gallon cart to throw away garbage, or that's the cost that's embedded in our garbage rate. So it's going to go from $5.62 to $7.07, and then it's going to slowly increase from 26, 27, 28 by about a 3% increase overall. So that's not a bad thing, but we see that initial jump up that's going to be effective September 1st. The same, and you can see the impact for the 65-gallon cart, the 2-yard container, as well as the 4-yard container. And then the truck porting, when we met last time with the city council, they said, you guys gave us the approval to embed that cost in there. So the rates that you're seeing right now include that additional cost associated with the truck port, the rate impact. And so an additional 30 cents was added to the rates effective 2026. Same with the roll-off services and the commercial containers. So those costs start in 2026. And so, and the other piece too that I wanted to make sure that everyone understood, and especially for the people who are watching or are attending purpose, your most popular level of service is a 35-gallon cart. Most of your customers are in that, and the second followed by the 65-gallon cart, and then in the 95-gallon cart. The 95-gallon cart, not a lot of customers utilize that. It's a pretty significant cart size, and I would. If I went back and looked, I think most of the people that are in that 95-gallon cart right now are commercial customers. And you've got a smattering of seniors that are in 20, 35, and 65-gallon carts. So you've got a total of 9,107 customers who utilize a roll cart for service right now. Next slide, please. And so these are the proposed residential collection rates that would be I have on here September 1st, but they would actually start to be billed out, I believe, November 1st due to the timing of the customer notice. But we would be going from 24.20 to 28.85, and then after that, the increase is minimal for the next 4 years, or excuse me, for the next 3 years after that. Again, we'd have the 20-gallon rate, 35-gallon rate, and 65-gallon rate for the seniors, and those are reduced rates. And here's the cost associated with that. The 20-gallon is 50% of the 35-gallon rate because two reasons. One, it's a discounted senior, but also it's a smaller container size. And the 35 and the 65-gallon cart have a 30% rate reduction compared to the standard rate for the 35 and 65. And by providing those lower rates to customers, there is a cost associated with that. It's a subsidy. This is a subsidized rate, and the cost is approximately 10 cents per customer per month, plus the $7.69 additional cost over for the 95-gallon cart. So the 95-gallon cart is significantly higher than the cost of service, but that higher cost is being utilized to subsidize the senior cart rates. Next slide, please. And these are the proposed commercial rates. And again, you can see that significant increase from the current rate to the proposed rate for 2024. And that goes all the way through 2024, 25. And then 2026 is the small incremental rate over that period of time. And again, that includes the 21 cents per collected yard of garbage for the commercial, or excuse me, for the truck port. Next slide, please. And then these are the proposed drop box rates. And again, on drop box rates, it's important to understand that there's three costs associated with drop box rates. The first one is the service fee, which is the first two charges, and that's the haul fee whether you have a drop box or you have a compactor. There's a delivery charge if it's an occasional, if it's a one-time clean out associated with that, and usually that's for either construction project or a clean out or something similar to that. There is the disposal cost, and the disposal cost for drop box is a pass through. So whatever cost that's incurred by the city, that it's going to be passed back to the customer. There's no markup. So if the city incurs the cost of $200 to dispose of the material that's collected in that drop box, that's what the customer is going to be invoiced. And then the other piece too is if you utilize a drop box provided by the city, there is a cost associated with that, whether it's a monthly rate or a daily rate. What I have on here is the monthly rate associated primarily with a commercial business. So with that, are there any questions from council?
Questions for Chris or Chris?
Yeah. Could you go back to the slide right before senior rates? Yeah, right. So we're saying that right now the current rate is $24.20 per month for a 35-gallon, right?
Correct.
Okay, so and we're saying that's going to go up to 28 if we pass this.
Correct. So again, if you look at that larger rate that's going to happen on October 1st, I know it says September 1st, but because of the 45 days, we got to wait a little bit. October 1st, that really gets into, I mean, the major reason is the transfer site. You know, the county is charging more money at the transfer site. So that's why you see that large impact on the first one. And then as Chris has talked about, it's a incremental 4%, something like that, maybe 5% in 26, 27, 28, because that's what we would traditionally see, which is almost like keeping up with inflation. If you think of CPI being around 3.5% to 4%, normally that keeps you in that ballpark. And Chris, did I misrepresent anything there?
That's correct. And there's three pieces associated with that increase. The biggest one being the cost of disposal. That's $1 for the 35-gallon cart. That's $1.45 increase just for the disposal. Then you also have the $1.25 increase for the deficit in the solid waste fund. And then you also have the third piece is that additional collection costs associated with the labor and trucks and everything else. So those three costs comprise the overall increase in the rates.
Other questions? Yeah, Councilmember.
Yeah, my only last question would be, this also assumes how much of an increase going towards our reserve? $1.25. $1.25. Going to what percentage?
I think it'll work out to approximately 16 or 17%, which equates to that 60 days of operating capital.
Oh, go ahead, Gary.
No, you go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that, it hurts. It's significant, for sure. But I think it's important that we don't blame the county, if you will. Cities years and years and years ago entered into a contract with the county to channel their garbage through the transfer station. And I do know that that contract is, with the cities, is reviewed periodically. And I know that the county negotiated the best that they could. And so, if we hauled out our own garbage, it would be significantly more than this here. And so I just don't want us to lose sight of that, to put this all on the county.
Councilmember Molinar.
I'm looking at the Sketch County disposal increase, right, on that page. And on that, it says, it is, in 2024, it was 1035 for the 65 gallon monthly cost right now. In September of 24, it's gonna go up to $13.03, right?
I'm not sure which slide.
I am on the Skagit County disposal increase.
The headline is Skagit County disposal increase.
Yeah,
There we go. Okay.
okay, so I guess for me, I'm looking at this going, you know what, the rates are increasing on the 65 gallon. They should have to pay something. And if we go down to what we're gonna be charging them, and I know that there's that subsidized thing, they're already paying their fair share, but it should, I think as a city, we're all taking a hit because the rates are going up. I know it's what, 1,900 65 gallon carts, is that what it is? Or not even
So
that
are we
much?
going, are you talking about the 95 gallon cart? Because that rate has been steady versus the
Or
35.
was it I'm thinking, was it the 65 gallon?
No, I mean, you can see here, the 65 gallon is being increased, the 35 gallon is being increased. The only one that was not,
Oh, I'm thinking 95, I'm sorry.
95.
Yeah, so why wouldn't that, when all the dumping fees and carts getting dropped
Sure.
off, why would we not?
So Chris,
at
I'll take a
least-
whack at that first, and then you got it next. So,
I know it's only 391 customers, but.
yeah, what was already added into the, and I'd sent this, some information out to council, so, maybe check it out, but it was like a page and a half worth of, cost-benefit analysis on the 95 gallon cart. So on the 95 gallon cart, though, it already has about a $7 and I think it was 65 cent premium already put on that currently without doing anything. And that was the dialogue that we had during the committee meeting that Chris had talked about, was if it was already at a premium, that's kind of why he had recommended that we keep it at that level. I know that was something Councilmember Beaton had brought up and talked about that as well. Again, it is a purely councilmatic action. If you want Chris to go back and take a look at adding whatever that fair share would be to the 95 gallon, recalculate everything that's in there, it may bring some of the rates down, but I would say it would be very incremental, because it's not, because you have even though a higher cost, you have lower amount of users, so the impact is not as great, but it could lower it by probably cents, not dollars. But Chris, over to you. You got the spreadsheet and everything.
It's not, like I was saying during our last meeting, the bigger risk is if you raise that rate and everybody pushes down to a 65 gallon cart. Right now, you're getting $7.69 premium over the cost of service. I mean, that's significant. If you, and right now the 65 gallon cart's a little bit higher than the cost of service, but that does catch up I believe in 2026. It's kind of one of those, you gain a few dollars on the front end for the 95, you lose X number of customers, you're at the same point.
Take on to that, just to make sure
Sure.
I heard all that correctly. I think that I did, but you know, part of my concern last week is just the fact that you might have a 95-gallon cart neighbor right next door to a 65-gallon cart, and they're upset because their rate has gone up and the 95-gallon cart has not. But I think the key is that those 95-gallon, there's a $7 premium added to their bill, essentially.
It's already
It's
included
in
it.
there.
Yes,
They're
yes, ma'am.
paying that additional premium, and I think that that's, I understand that more. It's easier to communicate, I suppose.
And, the others, have that question too is, do the citizens of Mount Vernon understand that they can't cancel and just start dumping garbage and bringing it to the county, even though it would probably cost them, I mean, we've kind of done studies on that, how
Yes,
much it
sir.
would cost to go out there.
No, you're absolutely right. It's the same rationale, if you will, for the waste management side of the house that
Right.
is there. The service is provided or it's required by code, you know, because again, if it was that some people did take garbage out there, some people didn't, and others just left it in their front yard, you know, and then became a health issue. Those would be the concerns that would come up with that. So it is mandated. I think it's in Chapter 8 of the Mount Vernon Municipal Code that talks about the need for that.
I know it's compulsory. I don't know the specific site at this point.
Because I think
good
you will
trivia.
have, I mean, we'll definitely have people asking about, well, why, we just don't have that much garbage and we'll just put it in.
What I can do is I can come up with, as this rate thing is going on, some frequently asked questions and provide that type of guidance. So I could send something out maybe by middle of next week. I'll send it out to council the way that I sent the other information, and then you can respond back to me only. And then I can peek and tweak that and then get it up to the mayor for his review, and then off we go with at least having that information. We could provide it on our website. If the council desires to have it as a stuffer to go into the utility bills, we can do that as well.
Sound good for
Sounds good.
communication?
Yeah, just,
Yeah.
you know, I think people have to understand, and I know I'm getting hammered on insurances and food and
Right.
gas, and, you know, you watch gas, it used to go up at, you know, a couple cents, now it goes 20 cents, you know, so it jumps in 1 week. So it is what it is. I mean, I think we've kind of exhausted most of what we're trying to keep it lower for seniors, and I think we're doing that as much as we can, so I'm fine with doing what we have to do.
I think you're right. I think it has been an exhaustive search, looking at every angle and how we can avoid something like this. Other council member comments or questions for either Chris?
I don't have anything more for Chris. I just kind of tagging on to what Gary said. I think it's important to understand that when you live in a city, there are certain utilities that are mandated. And I don't know that, if someone could correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know that there's a city out there that allows you to pick and choose if you want to have specific service. And so, you know, it's about cost effectiveness and it's about a public health issue. We all know what happens when there's strikes with garbage in the big cities, right? It doesn't get, so it's just part of living in a city living.
Okay. Councilmember Brocksmith, did you want to add anything?
I would like to jump in. One is, I think, just a general comment for the public that is watching. You've heard us talking tonight about having a fund, a sort of a general fund that is there for contingencies, and typically that's been 25%. But when we went through this update in 2021, we asked staff if we could knock that down, and they helped us get to this 17% contingency fund, reserve fund it's called. We looked at the ability to knock that down further, but really have been told that having that 2 months of reserves and operating funds in case there's another uncertainty that pops up that we weren't aware of, that we really can't get any lower. So that's one of the dials that we've turned before that we can't turn this time, it appears. So we looked at several options, but we've, I think, found all the savings that we can. Most of this increase is the increase being passed on to us by the cooperative with the county and the cities, as Melissa said, and we certainly don't want to blame anyone in that regard. I have a couple of, I guess, questions that I wanted to bring up for Chris and Chris. One, and we've talked about this a little bit, is the 95-gallon cart is not increasing. And I think from an equity standpoint, that everybody should have the same, should be seeing at least the rate of inflation, because if not, we're going to make less additional resources, and it's going to continue to pinch us, particularly on senior rates, which I'm very concerned about. So I think the 95-gallon cart ought to at least have a inflation multiplier that keeps us at its current level of revenue. So that's something I would like to see change. I know there's a small number of those carts, but I think it's still important that everybody's treated the same. So that's where I stand on that. And then my question is the 20-gallon senior rate. And I hadn't seen this, I apologize, last week when we had an extensive conversation about this 2 weeks ago, I'm sorry. And I'm seeing that the 20-gallon senior cart is going from $10.20 to $14.45, and so that's about a 40% increase, whereas the regular 35-gallon cart is going up only $4, which is a much smaller percentage. So the seniors are going to feel this more than anyone else. And so that's a concern that I wanted to share, that we look at those percentages as being more equal.
I wanted to just add to that, or maybe ask a question along with that. The 95-gallon carts and the cost for that, what is the delta between the cost for the actual service and the current rate that ratepayers pay for the 95? Is it, I think I heard you say a $7, $3? What was that?
It's $7.69 right now, and to answer Councilor Brocksmith's question about the 20-gallon cart, when rates were adjusted, I believe it was in 2014 by HDR. What they did is they took incremental costs. So the 20-gallon cart was a portion. It wasn't set a cost of service. They just said the 90 should be at so many dollars per gallon, or so much, whatever the calculation was. So the 20 was this much, the 35 was this, the 65 and the 95. So when you lined up the costs, the 20 was way below the cost of service. And then once you took that 20 and then added the senior rate, I believe it was like $4 or $5 for when they set the rate at the time for the senior rate, which is almost free. And so what I was doing here, and what if you recall back from the meetings we had a couple of years ago, we were slowly trying to increment and increase that cost of the 20-gallon up to the 35-gallon cart, because so many customers had jumped onto the 20-gallon cart to get it because the cost was below what the cost of service was. And so the reason you see that $10.20 to $14.45 for the senior rate is to try to catch up to the cost of service over the period of time. We're trying to incrementally do that slowly, but due to the last three the three pieces that we talked about earlier, have made that very difficult. We could do that, but again, you're gonna have to increase rates on everybody else to make that happen.
So when we talk equitable rates, when we look at 95-gallon customers, we're talking about customers that have been paying about 14% more over the last several years. for their service maybe than the other customers have.
And Chris, I know you're just providing information. I just want to reemphasize that this is 100% a councilmatic action to provide direction to your city staff and consultant to provide you information to be able to make an informed decision. So I just want to make sure that this isn't staff or the consultant pushing. We're just providing you information, and if the entire council.
We're following orders.
Yep.
Councilmember Tricero.
I would just like to know what, if we did not do those capital investments of the covering for the trucks, what our need to increase might be. The port, the truck ports, what that would look like, as far as how much less we would need to increase this.
Right, 30 cents for residential, 20
For collected yard for commercial and $2 on the drop box.
30 cents a month for most residentials.
And I will just say for the record, since we do have the public here, is that this is the one fund, as far as enterprise, our wastewater treatment, sewer fund, those funds for streets, not a problem because they have taken into account infrastructure and facility maintenance management. So when you think of general facilities, think of the rest of the city, not these guys. Everything is contained within this. So their salaries are paid for, the equipment, the house, where they house themselves, and everything that's in that part of it comes into play there. So again, the facility, I just want to throw this out, the reason that they want this truck port or desire to have this truck port is to get the trucks out of the weather. If they're out of the weather, you have less, rusting and corrosion and that type of activity on it, which then you may be able to extend the life of that. Garbage truck, just throw out some figures, anywhere from $450,000 to $550,000 per truck. So just kind of throwing it out there to balance that out as to why we would look at maybe doing something here with the facility. But again, councilmatic decision on desire to do that. Yes, sir?
Do we know what other municipalities do? Is this common for them to cover their trucks then?
Mm-hmm. If you were to go to like Skagit Transit or something like that with their buses and things like that, the majority of their buses are kept inside. Most of the other like large manufacturer carriers like a UPS and things like that, they have facilities that they're putting their trucks in. Not all of them, but a good majority of them in there for that.
I want to return to Councilmember Brocksmith just to ensure I didn't cut off the process of your questions getting answered. Councilmember Brocksmith.
Yes, I mean, I understand the rationale that they continue to these estimates continue to try to bring up the senior discount rate. If you can go forward a few more slides. But I'm not feeling 100% comfortable that most of our citizens are getting an 18% increase and our senior citizens are getting a 40% increase.
Okay. Staff is looking for direction. Do other council members have concerns along those lines? And is there a proposed action for that?
I agree with Councilmember Brocksmith. I'd like to see us tweak these numbers a little bit and see if we can keep the senior increase lower and maybe do something with the 95 gallon. I know that doesn't account for all of that difference, but if there's ways that we can work some of the numbers so that 40% increase isn't so looming.
Other council members?
I understand and I hear the concern. I suppose, Richard, is the direction then that we go back and every 35, 65, 95, 20, 35, and 65, everybody gets like whatever it is to bring us up to a healthy fund, 15%, 18%? Is that what you're looking for?
Well, I'm not the guy with the spreadsheet, but I do remember that there's about 172 customers in the 20-gallon senior. And so that number wouldn't make much of an impact on the rest. I mean, that's the point, right? Is that the vast majority of the citizens are actually subsidizing seniors who are on a fixed income. And for the general public, I want to make sure they're aware. This is, you only qualify for these senior discounts if you're over 60 and you're on a fixed income. I believe the last time I checked, the number was $40,000 a year, or you're, you can also qualify if you're disabled or veteran senior. So there's very few people in these numbers. So it would take very little to compensate from the other 8,000 carts, right? And that's why I brought up the 95-gallon. Yes, they've been paying more, but they're used to paying more. And I think they should be covering at least cost of inflation, if not more, because it'll continue to create a mismatch between the subsidies to the seniors and the extra revenue we're generating.
Looking for council direction and keeping in mind that, going back to the drawing board and coming back to council does take up some time. Happy to do it. We can work through all of this. But we do have that 45-day. And so we are, at this point, November, I think we said for billing. So could just as a consideration, but.
So what's the drop date for sure that we'd have to have this signed, sealed, delivered? If we're, what would
just
it,
you got 45 days from the time that,
Public notice is available per statute.
so if you
it was what?
It's 45 days from the time public notice is available, so you can either mail it out to every customer or put it in the Herald once a week for 2 consecutive weeks. Once that notice is out, the 45-day clock begins.
So, and the other clock that's running is we're running a deficit. So each day that we don't adjust these rates, we're going further into the hole. So
Okay.
that's the.
Yeah, I'm not saying we want to draw this out, but I just, I'd like to meet the deadline, whether we tweak it or not, and do it as is proposed. But I do feel like, I kind of feel a little bit like you do have, how many, 391, 95 gallons, right? You got how many seniors? If you're real, to me, is it 20-gallon seniors there's 172 of them that are low incoming, or is that all seniors that are on this program? So is there?
the 172, you have to qualify, just as Councilmember Broxman said.
Okay, so the
These are
20-gallon
qualified
is.
seniors that have the, income verification. It's done by the county.
Okay.
Or they have some type of, it could be someone with ADA. They meet the guidelines that are provided by the county. Those are qualifying members. They just would bring that back to Doug's folks in the utility and say, hey, here I am, and everything is verified, and I qualify for this particular program. Once they do that, the city accepts it, and that would be the new rate. Those would be the rates that they would have.
Okay, and we're not necessarily doing that on the 35-gallon on the senior then. That's a different, that's not a subsidy group.
Anything it says.
Anything in, that's what I'm
And I'll
asking. The
verify
20,
for Chris,
35,
anything that
65?
says senior in there, they qualify, they're subsidized by,
Oh,
They all-
okay.
Okay.
Oh,
so
okay.
there's 300.
I was kind of thinking it was just the
330.
20-gallon.
Oh, no,
people.
it's everybody who's a senior, they get a subsidized rate.
So I suppose,
The figure, I'm sorry, Melissa.
No, go, that's okay, Richard.
There's
Yeah,
another
see
slide.
now the 30,
Yeah.
the 35 gallon increase for seniors is quite a bit smaller. So it's the 20 gallon senior one that jumped out to me, and I know why it's estimated this way, but it's just a bigger jump for them than anyone else, which seems upside down.
I suppose what I'm wondering is if you take the 95 gallon cart and you do the, what is the cost of living? 3%? What do we know? Let's just assume it's 3% and you raise that by 3%. Will that generate enough revenue to offset that significant increase in the 20 gallon senior?
Is how much do you want, what do you want the, Councilor Brockman says, what do you want the rate to be?
Right, which was what I was asking earlier. I mean, I know Richard is saying it's about 40, and it is significant. So what is the percentage we're trying to get to in order to make it more equitable?
Well, generally, the other ones are 20%, so something like 20 to 25%, I would think.
I'll let you know, Chris is crunching numbers here, so it's the magic spreadsheet. He'll let you know here momentarily.
No pressure there, Chris.
For those of you at home, numbers are being crunched. It's public math.
Mr.
If we did raise it to the amount, the 20%, it'd go from $10.20 to $12.75. And so if you take that times 170, and let's say for this discussion, you raise the 90 gallon, the 95 gallon cart, you raise it to just $49 across the board. $1.50. Those two, you're probably going to lose maybe a few, but you should be able to offset that, and then keep that incremental rate.
I like that.
Me too.
I just, that seems fair to me. That the seniors, I mean, yes, you're senior, you're low income, but you're still live in a city where we're all in this together, and $2 is what the 35 gallon people are basically gonna pay. Not quite, but they've been the seniors 20 gallon have been subsidized for quite a while.
3's not gonna cut it, but I see a nodding head on Zoom. Councilmember Rocksmith, how do you feel about it?
Are you comfortable with that suggestion?
Mayor,
Sounding better. Thank you.
Okay. What did you mean it's not gonna cut it?
We need 4
Oh.
council members. So Councilmember Brocksmith's nod here is a yes, and so
We have direction.
we have
What I'll-
direction. We have a public hearing.
Yep.
And so is the public hearing for is it just open or a
Sure,
proposed rate?
If anybody has a comment, they can come up and then you can close the public hearing and
Okay.
you can provide me direction, which it sounds like, if I'm understanding it, the 95 gallons go up to 49. The 20 gallon senior goes down to what Chris had mentioned. I think it's $12 and some cents. What I'll do is I'll get that information from Chris tomorrow, email that out to you, or you all are in the BCC just so you can see it, so that on August 14th, when I come back, you've already had an opportunity to review it, see where we are with that. I'll also email out the frequently asked question piece, so you have something that's there, and then we can move forward with an ordinance for approval.
And with that, we will open the public hearing for the proposed residential rate collection. Anyone wishing to speak, please step to the podium. Please limit your comments to 3 to 5 minutes. State your name and residence.
I'm Marion Myers, and I'm of Mount Vernon, and I'm a 20-gallon senior cart person. And it makes a big difference. And it's a very tiny, they take a regular cart, and half of it is filled with weight. An insert. And I understand people try to take the inserts out, but you can't. And it makes, because we have that rate for there, I have a lot of bushes I have to trim, rhodies and boxwoods, and I have a green card. And I share it with the neighbors because we can all put our green card. But if you do the $14 thing, I'm going to cancel my green card. I don't know what I'm going to do with my bushes, but I don't think it's fair to. I'm sorry, I know that we're on Social Security and we don't get a big raise, but if you do the $12, I'm just speaking for myself, but yes, please, I can keep my green card for my neighbors without asking them for money. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Myers. Anyone else wish to speak on this topic? All right, with that, I'm going to close the open public hearing. Do you have all the direction you need?
I have all the direction I need, sir. Thank you.
Council, do you have any other questions or comments? All right.
Chris, it wasn't that tough, was it? No. Okay, see, we always get to.
Absolutely.
So if you want to,
If you want to go back to that slide real quick. If you can, I apologize.
Bless you.
The one with the residential rates.
Yep.
So right there. So the 20-gallon senior will go from 1020 to 1275, and then it'll be increased by 4% at that from that point on. So it'd go from 1275 to 1325 to 1380 to 1435 and then to 1490 in 2028. From the current rate to 2020 to this increase, and then it's 4% from that point on.
Okay.
And then for the record, 95 gallon goes to $49 straight across. Okay.
Understood. Okay, thank you, Mr. Phillips. Thank you, Mr. Bell, for joining us. Appreciate the help. Moving on to item 6B, it's an agreement with Skagit County for emergency medical services, and Fire Chief Brian Bryce is here to present that item. Hey, Chief.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight before you, we're asking for action to authorize the mayor to sign a contract agreement with the Skagit County for EMS ambulance transport services. By way of a brief background, prior to 2019, the ambulance service to the county and to this city as well was provided by kind of a third party that was called Central Valley Ambulance. It was funded through the EMS levy and then partially through the county to provide that service. That program had been studied for multiple years, 10 to 12 to 15 years prior to that date, with many recommendations recommending that that service be moved to a fire-based program. So through some diligence in 2018, we were able to, when I say we, the cities, were able to have conversations, come up with a good plan to move that to a fire-based EMS ambulance transport. And that's what happened in 2019. With that, we entered into a contract where some EMS levy money would fund to the city to help offset the cost of that service. There's a joint benefit for both the county and the city by doing that. One, the county got a greater depth of service by the number of ambulances that could be in the system, their reliability and availability to provide that to all the citizens of the county. The city benefited from augmented staffing that would be in the city to help assist not just with the EMS calls, but also with other fire-related calls as well. And then there was some compensation that was given to the city in consideration of that. But with the new passing of the new AMS levy, it's time to renew that contract again. That system has been working very, very well. All of the cities have taken it back to their attorneys. They've looked through the agreement and the scope of work. We've had multiple dialogues, and we believe this is a very fair deal for the city with the amount of compensation. Starting off, and there's a graduated scale within that, but in the first year, that rate would be $3,612,531 that would come to the city to help provide that service to the citizens. With that, we're seeking your approval for the mayor to execute this, and I'm happy to answer any questions related to this.
Questions for Chief Bryce, council?
Chief, I just wanted to confirm, this is a significant increase from the previous contract, correct?
That is correct. Previously, the city, is an example, in 2024, the city received approximately $1.6 million in levy funds. This will then go to 3.6. Part of that is the increased rate that the EMS levy went to. It went to 47 cents per 100,000, or per thousand, sorry. That was started in 2019 when we did that at 44 cents. So there was a slight increase to the overall rate, and then just through the inflationary piece of property values, that's why that number has been able to be increased.
Thank you for that.
Other questions from council?
Well, seeing and hearing no other questions, I'll make a motion that council adopt the contract for services with Skagit County and authorize the mayor to execute the contract.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Beaton, a second by Councilmember Tercero. Any discussion? Just waiting. I'm watching. Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. All right.
Thank you.
Passes. Thank you, Chief. Item 6C is an agreement with RCO for Phase 2 of the Parks Deferred Maintenance Grant, and Parks and Enrichment Director Jennifer Berner's with us. Hi, Jennifer.
Good evening. So this is this Phase 2 of our deferred maintenance grant. So we finished Phase 1. This is a two-part phase due to the state's how they do their fiscal year. And so we had $42,000 in Phase 1. All those projects were completed. Those projects consisted of repairing the two gates at Hillcrest and Bakerview. We also replaced the gazebo roof and the small shelter roof there at Hillcrest Park. And we have repaired the skate park ramps. We put new skate light material on those ramps. So those have been repaired. And we have re-powder coated 4 of the picnic tables there at Kiwanis Park. So that was all part of Phase 1. So now this contract is for $57,300, and it is for Phase 2. And those projects will consist of redoing our, excuse me, the tennis courts. So that work is actually on getting started. And then we've got the basketball courts at Hillcrest and at the 6th Street will be power washed and restriped. So they'll get a facelift. And then we're going to be painting the picnic shelters there at Hillcrest. And also we had in the grant to paint the restroom buildings at Hillcrest, Bakerview, and Sherman Anderson. So we'll be in contact with RCO about and figuring out, we have till the end of 2025 to spend this money. So depending on what we do with Bakerview, we may withhold some money to repaint that building when it's completed, or I don't know, we'll have to see how that all works out.
Okay.
So what we're asking for is for staff is requesting council to approve the Recreation Conservation Office deferred maintenance grant agreement and authorize the mayor to sign the agreement for our Phase 2 projects.
Council questions for Jennifer?
It's looking great what we've done so far, so I would move to approve the RCO deferred maintenance grant agreement.
Second.
Motion by Gary, a second by Navor. Any discussion? Jennifer, thank you for catching up on all of this deferred maintenance. Council also approved some funding earlier tonight for even more deferred maintenance, so we're focusing on our parks and we're trying to get it caught up. Thank you for prioritizing that. Council, all those in favor of the motion on the floor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. All right, and it passes.
I just want to say thank you for all the support. Much appreciated.
Item 6D is a request for the approval of the structure of the city's 1590 Affordable Housing Committee. Special Projects Manager Steve Sexton is presenting this item.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. What's on the agenda for you tonight is the proposed makeup of the Affordable Housing Committee for the 1590 process. And what is proposed on there, it's a variety of social service providers across the spectrum of those agencies who do that type of work. And I thought it was important to have some various groups represented on there. So you can see in your council memo, one would be a representative from an agency that monitors and employs data analytics to report on the overall health of our community. Another would be a representative from an agency that advocates for the Latino and farm worker communities in Skagit County. The third would be a representative from a nonprofit agency that has historically received grant funding and effectively utilized it to construct affordable housing units in Skagit County. Fourth is a representative from an agency that shares regional resources and opportunities with nonprofits throughout actually it's a multi-county region. So they've got a great knowledge of what is working out there in the region. And the fifth would be, should have been number one of the council members to be on that committee. So I did this last week, and I was thinking a lot about this, especially yesterday. Yesterday at 5 p.m. was our cutoff date and deadline for the 1590 applications. And we didn't really know going into this for the first time what to expect, how many applications, what type of applications, and all those kind of things. So we're kind of learning as we go. And when I looked at this yesterday again, we have 8 applications from 7 different applicants. And for the most part, I sent out an email earlier today. I hope you had a chance to look at that. They are agencies that I think the council has great familiarity with and has funded in large extent many times in the past. So given that, I was looking at our timeline, and I think that there's an opportunity for the council to shorten that timeline by treating these applicants much like the CDBG applicants. And what I mean by that is, instead of having the Affordable Housing Committee hear the presentations, make recommendations to the council, maybe council would consider just having the applicants themselves come to a council meeting next month, make their presentations, council discuss, deliberate, and make decisions on the funding that way. I think that would provide a couple different benefits to the city. One is we would have a better idea where the budget would stand for this fund going into next year. And the second thing, probably the most important, would be it would get those dollars in the hands of those who are going to do good work with it sooner. So that's kind of an idea I wanted to present to the council. We can do it any way council is comfortable with, but I wanted to just give that alternate idea out there.
Thanks, Steve. Council, let's start with that last question. Do you want to keep the process as it is and form this committee, or do you want to use something more similar to the CDBG process where you are the deciding body?
Personally, for me, I think you don't do more committees, because all that entails is just people missing meetings and waiting for somebody to show up. They can't do it. I mean, everybody's on vacations, and I think if we're serious about getting the money out the way you're talking, let's go for it and just, have it like CBDG. And I mean, we know community action, we know all these groups, we've dealt with them, so let's get it going.
Okay. Given the circumstances, other council members that would want to?
How specific of a presentation are they going to make? Are they going to tell us what their project actually is? Are they going to tell us what their budgets are? Are they going to, how in depth are they going to go? Because what I would hate to do is shortchange any one of them, not being able to give their full presentation. Are we talking half an hour each? That's a pretty long.
So all of them have been required to fill out an application. You would have access to all of those. So ahead of time, you would be pretty well versed in what everyone was asking and all of the requirements that they had in the application. So them being here on an evening would just be an overview of those things. Steve, anything you'd add to that?
I would add one thing there is that all of the applicants did present their financials. So we've got those, that was one of the requirements that the council wanted to have in that application process. So I did receive those from all the applicants. So you can see the budgets and those kind of things. The budgets for the projects themselves will be in the application package that I will distribute to council ahead of time.
And so that will be combined as one packet
Yep.
of all of those
Yep.
together?
One for each applicant, and then their presentation, I would leave it up to them on what they think is important to let the council know and the benefit to the city. Yeah.
That cover your?
That does. I'm just wondering, do we have a committee meeting just dedicated to that? Because it seems to me, trying to fit that into a city council meeting or one of our other I don't know, maybe the council of the whole, do we schedule it for something like that, or?
We could talk about that, what kind of format we would want to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you put a time limit on it. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I just, some, groups like to talk about every pencil and others want to give at least an overhead. And I think if we trust that with the groups that we know that they're spending wisely, I mean, we don't need to know about every pencil.
Sure.
So these meetings don't, the presentations, I think if you can't get it out in 10 minutes per group.
Cap it at 8 or 10?
Yeah, right.
I just wanted to say that anytime that, government can make a process less complex, more streamlined, and just get the funds out there, the sooner the better. I'm all for it. We set this up so that we could get to the end of this process in October and we could decide, no, we don't want to go with what the group recommended. So let's just get out of our way and get the funds to the agencies that we know and trust, and they can put it to good work.
Okay. Deborah, are you feeling the similar way? Councilmember Brocksmith, some comments, questions?
Thank you, Mayor. I think folks know that I've been a proponent of getting these funds out, as soon as possible to agencies who would use them for their intended purposes to help those who are unhoused or underhoused in our community. We spent quite a bit of time creating a process that everybody was comfortable with, all 7 of us, 8 if you include the mayor, of course, that had a considered number of experts who could objectively look at the proposals coming in the door. So it seems a little rash now to set that process aside that was advertised in the RFQ and in the rules that we set up. So I would want to make sure if we really wanted to do this, that it was a fair process and that we had the expertise to rate and evaluate these proposals. It looks like there's a wide range of proposals just from the names in the one-page list that we got today. And that's exciting because that's what we wanted. We wanted to see a bunch of good ideas come in the door, and we wanted to incentivize our partners to do good work. But I wonder if we have the expertise and time to do this ourselves. So I guess I'm a little bullish on the proposal. But if you all think that we have enough council members here and you're confident enough that we can do this objectively and with the expertise, then I will follow your lead.
Council response?
Okay.
I think we did spend considerable time with this process, but I certainly, from my perspective, I envisioned that we would, maybe fingers crossed, we would get a project that would be a much broader project where we would be partnering with a nonprofit and potentially building something, or we would be purchasing the land and donating the land. And so that's part of my thought process when we went through this and what I was envisioning, and we're not there yet. Hopefully we will be able to use this process in the future for something like that. That's just.
Yeah. That perfectly encapsulates what kind of the change in my mind that I went through. When we were talking about this, discussing this, I was envisioning also a much more complex project when that did materialize after the applications were submitted, that changed things for me. So I'm open to a streamlined process here where we take the committee out of the mix. Ultimately, council's going to have the final say either way. The committee doesn't. But those are just my thoughts, and as we all know, I don't have a vote in this unless there's a tie. I guess there could be a tie tonight, but, and also to keep in mind, you are missing 3 other council members. So the good news is if you don't want to make the decision on who decides committee, if it's a committee in the process or just council, you can add or take away that at any point in our process, right? You can do that at the next meeting or whenever, and we can just go to the makeup of the committee. Who's going to be on that committee? What sectors they'll be representing? So, if we haven't changed the 4th council member's mind, then we can still proceed. Councilmember Tesoro.
I think I would like to table this until our other council members are here to hear their input on this as well. I think they would feel better about this process if they were allowed to do what we're doing tonight and just voice their opinions.
Okay. I know I can speak confidently for Councilmember Hudson, who would be on board with this new suggestion, but not to take away from your point that we're missing some others, so.
And then, Iris is gonna be gone. 3?
Could be
Okay, so
another week, probably.
Oh,
So
another week.
she would be, that would be the 2nd week in August that would put us off to. Which, in that time, we could proceed with a committee. Your choice.
I'm not necessarily thinking we need to go committee. That's just me. I just think that's just gonna take a lot of time, and and it's not that time is of the essence as far as I'm hearing, right? I mean, we have till, but I just think we know community action, and we know the other, there was 3, 4, no, 7.
7 applicants.
7 applicants.
8 applications.
8 applications, right. Yeah, I mean, I'm fine either way, Richard, but I just don't want to, I guess, just rehash things that we've already rehashed and then have other people coming and rehashing and asking, questions that the answers are already known so that they can get filled in. And, I mean, that's my opinion. And I feel like with the staff we have and what they are going to be giving us and our expertise in some of these areas, obviously you've been on community action. I mean, I would listen to you and Mary, I mean, I think you guys could, and same with Andrew, he's been on different housing boards, and so I don't think by just going through a representative from every one of these groups that's really going to change much at the end of the day.
If I can real quickly too, the other thing that really made me think that this might be a good route to present to the council is that you all have the experience of awarding grant funding for these type of projects and services in the past. I would not have suggested this on the other side of the river because they don't have that experience. And so that's what led me to think, wow, this is a way that this might be more efficient and like.
Because of the CDBG process, and council's
Yeah.
used to, they do this annually.
Yep.
Yeah.
So.
To table this proposal, is that what I heard, that we wanted to wait for the other 2? You guys convinced me that we should give this a shot as a council. So I'll do whatever you guys want to do. I'll make a motion to table, or we set the whole thing aside and just do a CDBG approach. What do you want to do?
Okay. That would be 4 votes for the CDBG approach, and then, of course, I know of Mary's desire to go that route too, but that doesn't count as a vote. You had mentioned maybe having second thoughts about taking action without everyone here. Do we?
Is he waiting for a second for his table motion, or is he?
I think he's waiting to make a motion depending on which way we want to go with it. If there are four of you here.
So he didn't actually propose a.
Yeah, if there were four of you here that said, we're willing to go with the CDBG type process, then we could go that route.
Well, I do recognize the advantage of being able to award these funds faster. I think Andrew would want to be a part of this discussion. I know we know how Mary would feel. I don't know how Iris would feel, but it sounds like she probably would agree in that same vein. I would want somebody here on council, if I were not here, to say, let's hear what Navor has to say about this.
Council, maybe here's an option. We can move forward with removing the committee.
Okay.
We can meet, we can talk about it, and if, when all 7 council members are here, we decide, you know what, we don't have the expertise that it's gonna take to make this decision, let's go with a committee, you can add that back. There's nothing that says you can't alter your process as you go. Would that be helpful?
And I think, Navor, what you're talking about with Andrew, he's actually gonna be involved even more if you go the CDBG route.
You would have more input.
Versus having this whole committee that's formed. So I just think he would be probably, let's do that. But I don't want to speak for him.
Exactly, and I guess that's my point, is that's in essence what we're doing, is to speak for him when he hasn't spoken. And we're already avoiding one step by removing that other committee. And I think so, we have in essence sped that timeline up. I don't know that us not including him in this speeds it up that much faster to avoid having him here to say his piece.
Can I just make a motion to remove the 1590 Fund Affordable Housing Committee from the agenda?
Second.
Okay, did you want to move it from the agenda or from the process?
The agenda and the process.
Okay. Okay, so there's a motion and a second right now to remove the Affordable Housing Committee from the city's 1590 affordable housing process, selection process. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Beaton, a second by Councilmember Molinar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Councilmember Brocksmith, are you abstaining or are you waiting for discussion?
I'm sorry. I just heard Navor passionately support participation by the rest of our council members, and then I just heard a motion to remove the entire committee from the process and the agenda, and those are two separate things.
They are. We would just be, I believe we'd just be removing the committee from the process. Is that, I don't want to put.
Yes,
So
yes.
we could vote on that. We can add that back later when all 7 council members are here to discuss.
Okay, yes, aye.
All right.
I guess that's helpful.
Yeah.
I want a unanimous council.
Council,
Yes.
Motion passes. Council, we will work on bringing these to you in committee in the future versus kind of hitting you with it in the afternoon, a day of. Sorry about that, but it just seemed like a great idea.
Right.
So anyway, more discussion to come. Thanks, Steve. We'll move to item 6E. It's a resolution for the city's proposed 2025 to 2030 transportation improvement plan. And Public Works Director Chris Phillips is
Well,
here once again.
thank you so much,
Chris.
Mayor. I know you all were probably thinking, much like Saturday Night Live, I need more cowbell and more Phillips. You got them for the rest of the night.
The rest of the evening. Yes.
The night is still young.
Oh, it is. It's a beautiful night.
Could
So
we
I'm-
make Chris's walk-on music a cowbell?
Yes, done.
Yes, indeed. Little Will Ferrell. So I'm going to start off with just staff recommends City Council approve a proposed resolution the resolution adopting the 2025 to 2030 6-year transportation improvement plan. I will go through some slides very quickly, but just again to inform public as to what we've been discussing over the last month. I lost Councilmember Brocksmith. Okay. No, just kidding. So what we've done so far, we've completed a city council public hearing that was done last meeting. We've also met as a Public Works Committee and discussed it for a pretty good period of time, about an hour and a half. Overview of the transportation element as it's related to the 2016 comp plan. We had proposed changes to the draft 2025, 2030 transportation improvement program. So sorry for the typo there, but we've talked about it as well. We conducted a variety of one-on-one meetings with council members. So that was done by myself and the city engineer, Frank Reinhardt. And then I'm here tonight to get approval for the transportation improvement plan. This is what was presented to you, council. The red is just the highlighted areas that you all agreed that were okay as far as the changes that were recommended. I just will let you know, sorry about that, Councilmember Molinar, that the idea of the pedestrian bridge being included, it is included. You don't have to do the eye chart. Y'all wanted it in there, it's in there. And then some of these are just the name changes that if they were advised, this is what Frank had talked to you about, what the intent with those would be, and you all were in agreement with that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Here is just the map of those particular projects that were in the spreadsheet, where they're located throughout the city. So again, at some point in time, if the public wanted to print out the spreadsheet and the map, you could go spot by spot to figure out exactly where these proposed projects would be located. And then here, I'm just going to go through each one of these just very quickly. Again, 15th Street sidewalk improvements. This is between Broad Street and Division. You can see the project number, the schedule between 23 and 25, the funding, and then the scope of the work there. Again, you'll see added emphasis on sidewalks, ADA compliant sidewalks, and then improvements with a variety of other construction as it relates to complete streets, again. Next, we have the LaVenture Road widening, but again, as we talked about, the road is not widening. We have a footprint for the road. What's being included is we've got curb ramp to curb ramp, sidewalks, bike lanes. So again, we should make the bicyclists happy, the pedestrians happy, and this is a good connection between our Hogue-LaVenture light intersection, working our way down towards south, towards the college. So again, just that connection for pavement, sidewalk, and then because there's drainage that's there, that drainage will be taken care of through our stormwater. Those will be some enhancements there, as well as a retaining wall that we believe is going to be required as well. Riverside Drive Improvement Phase 2, and again, this would be north, think College Way to the Riverside Bridge. Again, we've got 2022 is when this started. We're at about the 60% design right now. We've got estimated costs of about $2.6 million. This is a federalized program, so if you think about big government, when President Biden was talking about transportation funding and getting it through, this is where Congressman Larson has been instrumental in getting that funding earmarked to the city to be able to utilize and improve these enhancements. Here we're looking at pavement overlay for rehabilitation, undergrounding utilities, improving our sidewalk, our ADA ramps, and the possibility of having some new streetlights. You will have more bite of the apple at this coming to council through committee as well as the public in regards to this particular project. Next, we have the 30th Street improvements. This is another one that we're using the transportation funding from the feds. In this particular case, we're looking at College Way to Paul Place, and if you think about this, this is connecting up to the Bakerview Park area. This is where I would be working with my colleague Jennifer Berner to ensure that we've got safe routes of getting our pedestrian as well as our bicyclists to these parks. And again, this connects also to Caution Trail. So we're looking at a pavement overlay. We're also eliminating historical flooding area. So there is a mobile home park that's in this particular area that 5 homes routinely are being flooded out or dealing with flooding. We're going to take care of it. We've got a culvert that's being replaced. So we have new fish passage going through there. So the fish people will be happy as well. And then enhanced stormwater facilities and extending bike ped along that way. So that is just a very huge project that we're working on there. Whoops, keep on hitting the wrong button. Caution Trail lighting. We've got 3 phases to this, and we have an opportunity with the grant to maybe do all 3 of these at the same time, okay? So the idea is installing new street lighting on the trail for protection and security, and increasing security camera. I've been working with our IT department and Mary there in these key locations. It's a primary school walking route for LaVenture Middle School, trail repairs, and again, there's other phases 2 and 4 that I'll get to, but just as I told you, we've got an opportunity to utilize some federal and state money in this regard to go ahead and put in for this particular grant. Blackburn Road Extension, we're continuing on with that. We are under contract to complete a 30% preliminary design for this, and that design will just allow us to procure or apply for other grants. This is to establish new streets that are needed with the expectations of a physical layout for predictability, the funding strategy, grant suitability, as well as, again, connecting Blackburn up to what we will call the Eaglemont development or planned unit development. We got Riverside Drive Improvement Phase 1. So think about College Way working your way south. In this particular case, we've got design and right-of-way that is going on at this particular time, and the proposed construction a few years later than Phase 2. Approximately $4.5 million here. And again, same things that we're doing on the north end, we're doing on the south end. On the south end, I'll just let you know, much more complicated right-of-way acquisition, and that's what we're kind of working through and scoping out at this particular juncture. But again, new sidewalks, ADA compliant, street lighting, undergrounding utilities, and then a pavement overlay and rehabilitation in this area. 30th Street pedestrian and bicyclist improvements, First Street to Mendito Drive. This is one that has been expressed to us at Mayor's Coffees that they would be interested in. So in this particular case, this has been something that's been on the books since 2024. Here we're looking at design in 27 and 28. Again, looking at pavement overlay for rehabilitation, but new sidewalks on both sides of the street, bike lanes, and improved stormwater system in that area too. And all that connecting on the south end, if you will, of Bakerview. So now you've got some other connection going up to the park system and ultimately Caution Trail, if you desire to do that.
Large residential area with no connection, but safe connection to the parks.
Yes, sir. Here we got the Fowler Trail connection, and again, we got some development here happening in South Mount Vernon. This is just something that we're looking at where we've got right-of-way and easements going through this area. It just made sense at this particular juncture to go through and see what we could do with a multimodal trail system going in there, utilizing existing city easements, and then improving stormwater drainage improvements along this area as well. 13th Street, Broad Street, new signal intersection improvement. Again, we discussed this at length. This is one, again, 27-28 timeframe, but a new signalized intersection here, mitigating increasing level of service. So again, as the demand goes up in this hospital zone area, level of service is affecting a variety of different intersections. When we go ahead and hit that mark, boom, this intersection will be taken care of. And again, retrofitting and correcting ADA ramps for more accessibility, and then intersection pavement overlays for rehab there too. So again, all good things for our community. 6th Street Division realignment. It's one that we've been looking at, and again, this is just the turn alignment, roadway banking for safer turning radius and reduce conflicts, and reconstructing the sidewalk up that way. Think about Lincoln School over in that area. That's where we're looking at there. And then we also have the LaVenture Road, Blackburn Road, new signalized intersection improvement. Again, as design and development that are happening along the Blackburn and the South Mount Vernon area, this may be something that gets happening sooner than later in that regard. But again, we will be able to leverage grant funding to make this happen as well. And then Broad Street realignment, realigning and relaxing a curve on the street near the top of the hill for improved safety and retrofitting sidewalks. First Street pedestrian and bicyclist improvements. Again, a little bit more on the future side of the house, but we are leveraging grant opportunities and applying for those if it makes sense with Washington State. There's a variety of these that are coming out for new sidewalk, bike lanes, and extending the sidewalks along Wall Road. And again, we've got pavement overlay and the stormwater upgrades as well. Caution trail lighting, I won't belabor the fact, we talked about it. Martin Road, again, looking at this is really a stretch out there in the 29 and 2030, but we're replacing the 5-foot asphalt path with a 10-foot shared path, ADA improvements, adjusting and repaving the existing roadway, and then possible installation of retaining walls where needed. And again, we haven't even gotten in design for any of this yet, so that'll still be something that's in work. The Blackburn Road pedestrian and bicyclist improvements. Again, this is all goes hand in glove, if you will, with the Blackburn Road extension and future development along here. Again, bikeability, pedestrian safety, ADA compliance, and stormwater. Hopefully you can see a theme to what's going on here, and especially with the atmospheric rivers that we'll be dealing with here in the fall and again in the springtime, stormwater will become and continue to be an issue as we're continuing to improve our systems there. River Dyke Trail, or you can call it Riverdale, improvements. Not sure how I got there. You can see where we're improving existing gravel and dirt maintenance for road and pavement along a multimodal area over here. This is close to our Dyke District 3 and working with them. I'll just let you know there was something that working with the Dyke District and our Parks Department putting in some barriers associated with that because there has been motorized vehicular traffic going up there and damaging that particular area. So this is something that Jennifer's jumped on. But again, this is something we will want to take a look at as well from a planning perspective and construction. Caution trail lighting again. Kincaid Street, complete streets. This is going from 3rd Street to I-5. This will be, again, working with WASDOT for pedestrian as well as repavement in this particular area. Hickox Road interchange, again, out there at the 2030. 18th and Blackburn. 30th Street extension. Skagit River Bridge, still there. And again, the pedestrian bridge, I understand there's been some conversation with that. Mayor, I did get your voicemail and text message on that before you had the little family emergency there, and I will ensure that I get back with you on that just to find out what your desires are with Council Member Vanderstoep, and we'll march on verily there.
Thanks, Chris.
And with that, city staff recommends adopting the 2025 to 2030 Transportation Improvement Plan, pending your questions or comments.
Any questions? Nope, no questions. Any questions, council?
I got just one. What was the timeline on the Lincoln Hill straightening out?
That was like in 2029, 2030.
Okay.
It's on the far right side of that.
Okay, sounds good.
Other comments, questions?
I would make a motion. I think we kind of pounded it out last couple weeks.
Yeah.
And so I feel good about where we're headed with this. So I'd make a motion to approve the CPI.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion by Councilmember Molinar, a second by Councilmember Cicero to approve Resolution 1058.
That would be it.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. It passes pending the Zoom vote connecting to audio.
He's connecting to audio.
All right. think he was for it.
Would a visual thumbs up?
Councilmember Brocksmith, are you in on this one? Thumbs up?
I'm sorry, I just had some connectivity problems, but I have both thumbs up for the 25, 20, 30 transportation improvement plan, Mayor.
That is 4 votes, and the resolution 1058 passes. Chris is going to stay up there for item 6F, which is an amendment to the city's agreement with HKP Architects. Chris.
Thank you so much, Mayor. City staff recommends the City Council authorize the mayor to enter into a contract amendment with HKP Architects LLC for additional services that were not included in the original scope of work for the Mount Vernon Library Commons project in the amount of $145,368.98. Additional Mount Vernon Library architectural statement of work services, including extended construction contract administrative services, as-built record document review for the plan unit for the PUD, our water district, structural, electrical, and landscaping engineering. HKP contract amendment is required to coordinate and facilitate dynamic communication amongst principal contractors, subcontractors, city staff, and OAC, who is our project manager, to complete the project in a timely and efficient manner. The city staff recommends City Council authorize the mayor to enter into a contract amendment with HKP Architects for these additional services, pending your questions.
A 0.2% increase on the overall budget. Council questions for Mr. Phillips?
I'll make a motion, council authorize the mayor to enter into the contract amendment with HKP.
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Navor. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say no. And the motion passes. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
There is no more new business for item 7. I'm going to ask our city attorney, Kevin Rogerson, to call the mayor and council into executive session.
Yes, I invite the mayor and members of city council to enter into an executive session to discuss with legal counsel city enforcement actions, litigation, or potential litigation to which the city, the governing body, or any member acting in an official capacity is or is likely to become a party when public knowledge regarding such discussions is likely to result in either adverse legal or financial consequence to the city pursuant to RCW 423110 subsection 1I. It will be 15 minutes, and we will reconvene with no action after.
And with that, we will adjourn the City of Mount Vernon City Council meeting for Wednesday, July 24th, 2024 at 8:49 p.m.